Broadcasting from Ireland, featuring interviews with some of the biggest names in magic. Welcome to the Deceive Reality Podcast with your hosts, David Peace and Steve Spade.
And we're back. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Deceive Reality Podcast. My name is David Peace, or Clubs and Hearts, and I'm here with Spade and Diamonds.
Nice.
Gotta get it going. How are you both doing? I'll start with you, Steve. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. All good. I love this chase thing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
For people who aren't watching it, our names are in chased order just to get it right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Obsessed.
And if you don't know what that means, you're listening to the wrong podcast.
100%.
I mean, I'm glad you're here, but I mean, I feel bad because so much of this is going to go over your head. Like
we're all chased. We refuse to have any sort of sexual intimacy anyway.
Well, they're magicians. Obviously, they're virgins. Obviously, they're chased. So
so we're all in chased order. That's how we remember it.
That's the most impressive part. Wait, what? They're not chased.
100%. Like, look at us. We've got wives and girlfriends and everything. Look at us.
I think stick to the cards, Dave. I don't know what it is. It's a bit Dungeons and Dragons, but it might work.
yeah, it's the new name. But we have our special guest completing the trilogy. We've had the New Hope, we've had the Empire Strikes Back, and now it's time for some Ewoks. It's showtime!
He's back.
And now we're gonna have a really solid opening 30 minutes. That should just wrap up after that, but we're gonna keep going and kind of
Anyway,
yeah. And will we come back for prequels and sequels and side quests and video games? And of course we are. Of course we are.
It's probably more like Return of the King, because anytime we try to end this podcast, it always goes on for an extra hour.
the extended
12 false
edition.
endings.
Oh my god. So real quick, just for the listeners, as soon as we got on, you all asked me how I was, and I said great, because obviously the Foolish episode aired. However, I wanted to save this to put this in perspective. I'm doing especially great because to give you an idea of how long I've been waiting to talk about this, I left Vegas the day you touched down in Vegas, Steve, to receive your Merlin Award. That's how long you've been able to talk about nothing but that for these last 6 months. How awesome you are, and I've had to keep this shit a secret. So, I'm thrilled to finally talk to you about it, but also I was
gonna go to that taping. We didn't go.
It was the day before. It was on the 8th. I think you got in on the 9th.
Yeah, we got on. Yeah, we were trying to get a taping, and we knew there was ones 8th, 9th, and 10th, or whatever it was, and
yeah. I filmed on 8/8, which we'll get to in a moment. But yeah, so it was crazy, and and I felt bad because it was they had Magic Live going on at the same time, so you were like, oh, are you going to Magic Live? I'm like, no, I'm doing something else. I'll give you a guess. I can't say what it is. It's the other thing in town. I can't say what it is, but guess. It's the worst kept secret in the world. And it's also weird because they have you sign NDAs as thick as your head, and then for the live audience, they just walk in and they're like, "Yeah, you can watch all the acts. Don't tell anyone about it. Bye."
It's
crazy.
Okay, I didn't see any of the other acts. We all hung out backstage and chatted. They've all aired except for one person who is across the pond as well. And she was great. That's all I'll say about it, because I don't want to get her or me in trouble yet. But it was great to hang out. It was also a lot of first timers at backstage. The only person who had done it before was Mark D'Souza, and he was the first one to go. So it was a reverse Saw Willy Wonka kill room. I started with the rehearsal, and then I was the last to perform. So I get into backstage. I'm sitting there by myself, and then people come in one by one, and then they leave one by one and never come back. So it's what happened? Are they dead? Did they fool them? What happened? I don't know. Are Penn and Teller in a good mood? I have no idea. Yeah. Lifty fizzy drink. What happened? It was so it was hard to be and I left early in the morning on the 9th, so it was hard to literally be because we were messaging back and forth a little bit to be like, oh, what time are you free? This time? Question mark. Where are you? I'm at the Rio.
Yeah. We literally got in and my camera was like, come to my show tonight. And I was like, but we're tired. We're really tired. But we dragged ourselves down there, but the show was awesome. It was just good fun. And then we hung out with him that night and then the next night.
Cool.
But yeah,
Cool.
great fun. But yeah, no, well done, man, with the photos. It was awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a lot of work, a lot of
65 submissions, was it?
somewhere in that range.
So let's talk through all of them. Let's go.
They're all on YouTube. I mean, you watch a YouTube video of mine, I've sent it in. Like it's there. So there's that. That's number one. Number two. Okay, so let's back up a little bit for the full history for people. We'll assume everyone knows what the heck we're talking about when we talk about Penn and Teller Fool Us. Pause the podcast and Google it for 5 seconds, then come back. But the first U.S. season, my friend Bill Cook was on the show, and he was good friends with Johnny Thompson. I only met Johnny Thompson once in person, but Bill was good friends with him, and Johnny recommended him for the show. So Bill was on whatever season that counts as, 2 or 3 or whatever. The first season filmed in Las Vegas, and his spot was great. It was great to work with him a little bit on his piece. He did a version of a trick that's it was inspired by something that Wayne Dobson did, where it's an invisible deck type routine, but you produce the card they are thinking up or imagining from a purse string, folded up. And he did it beautifully, and Penn and Teller said lots of nice things. And the next year they did full on, auditions. And I was like, I got the email. So I sent in some stuff, nothing. Sent in some stuff. The next year, nothing. The next year, sent in some stuff. I was also doing a show at the time with David Parr in Chicago called The Magic Cabaret. He got on. I did not. One of those years, I got very, very close with getting on with I was getting really popular in the Midwest for unlocking iPhones. Shout out to Michael Murray. He's a genius. I owe him all the drinks and old fashions or whatever he drinks over there when I see him, because his calculated risk has all the way up until 2020, when I stopped touching people's gross iPhones. That kept me in business, because people were I did it on the radio. That video spread, and there was a chance. I got pretty far along with the pitch of coming on the show and unlocking Penn's iPhone with that. And I had messaged Michael about it. He said, sure. And because they had messaged me back and forth asking about the method, like, do you need to do pre-show? No. Which I think was a big selling point, because they don't allow pre-show on it. And for anyone who doesn't know Michael's thinking or whatever with that effect, it's very clever. We'll just leave it at that.
Brilliant.
Buy it. Calculated risk. Mm-hmm. It's great. So I even said, hey, here's some alternate methods from the creator that I use just in case, other methods go wrong, blah, blah, blah. Here's what I can do. And they got to the point where they were like, you're not booked, but these are our film dates. Could you make any of these? And I was like, yes, to all of them. I can make any and all of them. Because I think they were looking at it as, oh, here's someone who doesn't need to bring gear, who doesn't need to bring an assistant, props. He just needs to walk out, ask Penn for his iPhone, and go. Yeah. And then I didn't hear anything. I eventually messaged, and they eventually said, hey, yeah, we are all set for this season, but, please reach out again. And that was like 2018, 19, something like that, to give you an idea of how far back it was. So yeah, I just kept In fact, I would say probably the only reason I kept making video content was to have stuff to send to them. And during this time, a couple other friends, I went on the show and I helped them with some stuff. So I learned a lot about the inner workings of going on beforehand, keeping it a secret, what happens backstage, how you handle it, working with Mike Close, working with Johnny Thompson. That said, there's a world of difference, what was it, Lewis and Clark, who said the map is not the territory. Like you can read about it, you can do all it, you can talk to people while they're backstage on the phone saying, okay, that method's not going to work, or that adhesive isn't working under the stage lights. What should you use instead? And it's totally different when you're there. And so, yeah, but I mean, the biggest thing I've learned in this business is just consistency. I mean, Darren Brown talks about talent and energy and in his book, and like, I would say the only thing I would add to that is consistency, which I guess technically would be under the umbrella of both talent and energy. Talent means you can do it consistently, and energy means you are able to do it all consistently. I guess I don't know. I
guess the idea of it as well, that like submitting it every year meant that you had to do creative thinking every year. Even the years you didn't get on, you'd come up with a brilliant routine that you could then do in other places. And it also is just it's like brain exercises as a magician.
Sure.
It's like it's always good to have that sort of stuff.
I sent them. I worked with a friend of mine with on an ESP matchup routine. Didn't get selected. So there's a auto museum here in the Midwest that's got one of the Ecto-1s from Back to the Future. And I did a YouTube video of me in front of that with the guy who runs the place. So that was fun. That came out as good content. So it wasn't like all this stuff was, laying around on the, on the studio floor, cutting room floor afterwards. And I looked for as many opportunities, and it made me creative every year to just like, okay, well, not going to have a big TV appearance. What else can I do? And during this time, I had become a regular on Brian Brushwood's YouTube shows, Modern Rogue, Scam Nation, and he's fairly close with Teller, even though, and he knows the producers. He's been on the show. And I don't know if it was because it was a video with him. I mean, I don't know what was in Lincoln and Andrew's hearts when they said, okay, this is the thing. This year, like you'd have to ask them. I had lots of conversations with them about it. It seemed like it was in line with what them and Mike Close have said in other interviews, which is having a really solid, good fooling trick for TV. And it was a trick called Thought Echo, which is in some of the Card College books. It was originally published in one of the Paul Bearer's Review. And the irony of it is I taught it on Brian's channel. So everyone listening,
Penn and Teller fucking watched it the day before, right? And
we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the kind of mental game I had to go with that. And so, but I know they get a lot of card submissions. And they always go kind of back and forth on it because they said no cards in 1 year. I think it was the year I ended up not getting on with the iPhone. When I watched that season, there were a lot of iPhone tricks. So I wonder if that was against me on that. So that video is one of the best. I think it's the highest performing video on the channel in like the last 5 years. It's over 200,000 views. I fooled Brian very badly with that trick. Our friend Dez, he's become a quite good friend. He works in robotics, and when he's in town, we hang out. And he lives down in Florida, so we went to Disney and hung out together. while I was down there. So we've hung out a lot since this and become quite good friends. And he's booked me for some shows for different companies he works for. And like when I say he's a smart guy, I mean he's a smart guy. He can build a robot with like tinfoil and a paperclip. And so so it was one of those things where like, oh, I know I'm gonna fool them badly with this, like with this trick. I know, and the first time I ever met met Eugene Berger in Chicago. I was maybe 19 or 20. He performed his usual card magic, card mentalism stuff, which is all in the Final Secrets book. It was all great, all with my deck. But he also performed this trick and taught it to me because it was just in one of the Card College Light books. And like that kind of became one of my go-to like hands-off magician fooler type tricks. So while at Brian's studio, I looked at the bookshelf and saw the original magazine, Paul Bearer's Review, that trick was published in. And I was like, oh, I wonder if that's the same volume the trick was published in. And it was. So I said, Brian, I got a trick that'll fool you that's on your bookshelf.
I remember that episode.
That's buried in a book from your bookshelf. And it was very popular, so popular. We've kind of tried to not recreate, but we've kind of tried to channel that every time I go back. Like, I don't even like I get a little bit of a head start because I know all the books there now before I go to Austin, so I can look in my library and see what overlap there is. But I'll kind of set myself the challenge of when I go there. All right, grab the books off the shelf, find stuff, and what can I find buried in old Carl Fulva's book that we can breathe some new life into? Now it's been a little harder because that original Thought Echo piece was something I'd done for a long time. Love that book. You know,
Carl Fulva's.
You know, Animan pseudopsychometry is in that book. That last chapter where he goes into the full like psychometry and everything, it's great. Also, I don't know if Carl Fulvas is still on this mortal coil, so I'm going to share a conspiracy theory, that we'll just call it. Apparently, I will not name my source, but apparently, those books are technically, depending on how you want to look at it, ghostwritten by Johnny Thompson. Apparently, a lot of that stuff was late night working on removing moves from classic plots and such, and just ended up in Carl Fulva's books without maybe permission, maybe without. That's where the story gets really messy and becomes kind of like, you know, Di Vernon's Brainwave deck ending up in the Jinx and all that. Like, that's where it gets kind of messy because Johnny Thompson is thanked in some of the books and not the others. So I don't know where all that begins and ends. But just to say, if you're ever going through the self-working whatever books by Carl Fulvas and go, this is pretty next level thinking for a self-working magic book, it's probably because the greatest magic thinker of the last 100 years contributed.
No, I didn't.
So, all right, the second greatest.
Thank you.
All right. The greatest living. You're the greatest not living, or whatever, however we want to put it.
It's definitely a Marlowe book.
Yeah, exactly. So, so that episode, and just because Brian was so destroyed by the trick, and the trick, I also don't normally present my stuff this way, but this trick was so much like, yeah, you know key cards, you know magic methods, you know, I'm about to take you to school. Boom. All right.
Like a foolish audition proper. Like, I'm going to fool the magician.
Kind of.
Yeah.
So, I submitted it, and this is where we're fully caught up to April of 2023. And I submit it and I say, by the way, I can do this with tarot cards as well. So they say, great. Can you send us a video of that? Sure. So I raced home and just made a very rough, no written script. Just here's a bunch of stuff. Here's how the trick would work with tarot cards. And they said, great. Could you write up a script for it? Okay. So that night before, that was like Thursday, Friday before my show, they send that email. So before my show, I'm just do the show, after the show, go back to writing. They come back with a few minor notes. I come back with the updated version and I'm like, is this actually going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
Is this finally going to happen? Now, to put this in other perspective, I auditioned for Wizard Wars when it was on Sci-Fi, got very close but didn't get on. There was a show that was going to be produced. I guess I can talk about this now. One of the producers was going to be, I think, Illusionist, or they were like working on it. The idea was that they went around the country finding different performers to like have different magic. And Lee Asher got me connected with that. I got the gig for that. I was gonna do a thing with a voodoo doll. It was gonna be edgy. It was gonna be cool. We were gonna fly me to New Orleans. And like 2 weeks before filming, the production company got sold to another production company, and the whole thing got killed. So I had signed the things. It was happening. Got killed. And this was like 10 years ago now, like 2014. So I think I'm well past talking about that now. And Lee was great. I've haven't talked with Lee in a while, but Lee Asher is. It was a blast to work with him and everything. And so yeah, so I've had a lot of like ships in the night TV moments.
Yeah.
I'm in the documentary Make Believe, which ended up on like Showtime and Netflix, which is why I'm able to use those as like TV credits, which sound important in like a intro, but like they're not proper. I'll fully admit they're not proper TV credits. Like I have way more, but again, doing the local news, Modern Rogue, all that stuff, it may not have the brand recognition, but those have been like the good showcases for that stuff.
Yeah, it was like for me, I got True on Ireland's Got Talent stuff.
Yeah.
But one of the judges exposed my method in front of the audience. He was just like, "You're using a force," and I said, "No, I wasn't. I was using a force." But I'd read the contract which said that they will not expose my method. So I sent them an email afterwards saying, "Why was my method exposed?" when in the contract it says it wasn't. So my audition was not shown, even though I got through. But I am seen in the background quite a lot.
Okay.
Walking around. So I'm like, as seen on TV. Done.
Again, I won't say who this is. This I really should not say who it is. But I know someone. And this is a name. If I said their name, everyone in the magic community would know this person's name.
He's going to tell us after the podcast.
Maybe when I see that it's not recording. They did an audition on one of the Got Talent shows. I won't even say which continent it was on. Not that it matters. British people are on America's Got Talent and Australia. Like, it doesn't matter. But I won't even say which one it's on. But he knew the jeweler that did the same wedding ring as the female judge, and spent $15,000 to get a Himber ring duplicate of it, to do the best, cleanest, greatest version of linking finger rings ever done on television. Got 4 yeses, 2 standing ovations, once for linking them, once for unlinking them, and was told, "We have enough magicians this season. You're not through." Well, can I get the footage? No.
Fucking hell.
So, Again, had all that in the
TV's a
back of my
bitch.
mind. TV is a bitch. We're not even getting started. We aren't even started. We're not even started with my story, and there's even parts of it I'm still not going to fully talk about for a couple of reasons. But I'm still going to talk way more than I ever could up until now. So, long story short, I got on with the tarot version.
They were
Now,
weird
you might be
tarot
wondering,
cards.
wait a second, Joe did playing cards.
You
So,
did.
spoiler alert. Now, I got the yes in April. We filmed in August. Without going too personal into other aspects of my career and personal life, I was doing shows in a historic mansion in the Midwest. That was an arts park. I won't go into the, for lack of a better term, politics of it, but the board of millionaires who may or may not want it run a certain way and don't want what they consider art in there, and got rid of all the artists. And long story short, I lost my venue. And I got word of it the same week. I got word that I was finally going to be on Fool Us. That was a weird week. So I'm trying to move out of my venue while doing shows every week. So I was sold out for weeks. All the way up until I did a show, and the next day I was moved out in that room. And I was writing that piece in that room. And in fact, the final tarot video I took was in that room. So the final performance I ever did in that room is of me doing the tarot version that I then sent to some friends and consultants. And if there's any advice, anything I have for people, it's hire your dream team, hire your consultants, and don't skimp. If you don't have the finances for it, ask your friends, beg, borrow, steal, give magic lessons so that you can afford a consultant. It is the best investment you will make. It is the best investment I made. I got I won't go into how much each of them were, but I'm very open about who I worked with on this. But they're all legends in our industry. I asked Luke Tremay to work with me on the script and the performance. I asked Spidey. He's been on the show. And he does great stuff. And I didn't want, there's a lot of people who have worked with a lot of acts on the show, and no shade to those consultants or performers at all, but I didn't want to look like those performers. So, because I had some people ask, oh, why didn't you go with this person who's done a lot of consulting work and is like arguably like the person? It was just plain and simply, I didn't want to look like all the other, because you can tell normally, I think, at least I felt, you can tell when that person has worked with an act. Like, oh, this person worked with so-and-so. And that consultant, again, I don't even want to, there's a lot of great consultants in the industry. I don't even want to say who I'm talking about or why I didn't work. You can't work with everyone, of course.
Yeah.
And if any of the people I asked said no or were out of my budget, I might have asked one of those other people. But worth every penny. The other thing too is, especially with someone like Luke, who I know, but we're not like friends. We're not buds. We don't like chat on Zoom all the time. Alex and I, we chat a lot, and we've hung out in person. And Spidey and I, we haven't hung out in person, but we've hung out on Zoom a ton. I wanted people who had most of their visualization of me through a screen. That was my main reason. They weren't people who have seen a lot of my work live and didn't have that disconnect. of like, yes, this works great when live and everything. They only had it through that filter, if that makes sense. And they've also worked in that medium. They all have worked in TV and know how to communicate to a camera, and this was the big thing for me as well, to communicate my persona, character, however you want to call that, through the screen. Because to me, it wasn't about getting on to do a trick. And Brian Brushwood, of course. Brian and I are very good friends. Brian helped me with every stage of it, the script, the walk-off bit, which we'll talk about as well. That was almost all Brian. And everyone, like, to give you an idea of how perfect that was and how that was in my head from day one, the walk-off gag of I predict I will not fool Penn and Teller. To give you an idea of how much I had that in my head, that was the first thing I brought to Brian. We worked out the wording, and everyone across the board was like, yep, that's great, no notes. Like, that stayed the same all the way through, across everyone. So yeah. So I work on the script. Now here's the other thing. So this was April to August. We film in August. August 8th was the filming day. I have the curse of the good student. What I mean by that is I'll turn in all the homework even if I don't have to. So every time I updated the script, I sent it to the producers. Now, we've all worked with producers, TV folk, showbiz folk. We've all sent our writers, it needs to be this high. I need a stool. I need a step. Literally, like last month, I was working a venue. They did not have a step up onto the stage. When I asked them for one, they literally asked why. So me and the people in your venue can safely get onto your stage. Are we on Mars? Like, what are you talking about? Like, we've all dealt with these people at every level of show business, from the backroom bar shows all the way up to the most glamorous of venues. And in my head, I'm like, they're dealing with. Also, this was a season and a half. I don't think I'm talking out of turn when I say this. They filmed a season and a half this last year. So rather than it being like 40 acts, it was 60 acts. Yeah. So I'm like, they got a lot of people to keep track of and everything. I'm just sending it to them so that they've got it and they can pull it up if they need it on their end, or if like my thing isn't working while we're in a Zoom meeting. You never know. I'm just going to send them all the updates. So we get on to our first Zoom meeting. It's about 2 months from filming, which is a good amount of time, but also not at the same time. Like, that's decent. That's a decent amount of time. That's like kind of right in the sweet spot. So everyone's on. Andrew and Lincoln and Mike Close, this wonderful producer, Samantha Harris, was kind of like my person on this. She's the one who emailed me saying I got it, and she was off stage as I walked off stage at the taping. Like, she was with me every step of the way. She was in there, and we're logging on to do my Zoom rehearsal. Now, again, I have paid for these consultants, and like, we're done. Like, I've paid for for them to look at the performance, the script. I've taken in their notes. I've adjusted the script, sent it off to them. Great. I've also worked on the method, of course, because each of those people have insanely smart magic methods. And as much as Brian Brushwood said, you're not yes, the show is called Fool Us, but you're going on to show the best version of you. You're not really going on to fool them.
Yeah.
Yes, that is the primary directive. But if you're going on the show, you gotta play.
Try. Yeah,
you gotta play. Like, I'm not gonna. And also, the other thing too, like, I had that gag in my head, which I was like, oh, this is just as good, if not better, as a trophy walking off with the skag. So like I'm covered. Like as a mentalist, as a performer, I literally have all the bases covered. So we get to our first rehearsal, and like the day before, they're like, "Hey, before the thing tomorrow, can you send us a regular card version of the script?"
I hope that was like a conversation with them on the phone, and there was that much silence.
No, it was an email. It was an
Okay.
email.
There's just
I
a
was
lot of
like,
black dot.
Sure. Heads up, it's gonna be the script I've sent you, but with the word tarot removed. So none of the jokes or anything are gonna make sense. There were some great jokes and some great lines that Luke Germain and Spidey gave me. One of my favorite lines from Luke was people believe tarot cards could give you messages from the gods, but they also believed the earth was flat, which was a great line. My line that I really liked was tarot cards, because in my head I was like, oh, sitting down at the table with Penn and Teller, the Las Vegas Skeptics, with tarot cards, that's good. That's right for comedy and tension and fun, and I can talk about how, like, I kind of believe in these, but not really. Some people believe in these. The other line I had was, I know you think these are for scam artists, but there's lots of uses for them these days, like for millennials who can't afford therapy, stuff like that. And Luke had some other great insights for it, and so the presentation was also going to involve classical music. That's all I'll say, because I'm actually going to be releasing the tarot version very soon. I'm going to be doing an online lecture, and then that will be on Zoom and recorded live and everything. And then people who attended the lecture will get it. And then I'm going to sell the recorded lecture online, so people can get the full method and all that. So some of these stories I'll tell in that lecture, of course. There's like one or two I'm going to save that are related specifically to the method. I'll save for that lecture, but you're getting the full showbiz story here. But again, like, you can look at the method on YouTube, figure out how you would apply that to tarot, and come up with your own way if you want to know what I did and get all the insights I got from, again, these great, because I don't want the work we did on that to go to waste. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know if I'll ever have a chance to perform it with tarot cards now that I'm kind of now known for doing the other version. But Spidey had a great line. So the theme was about classical music as well. So there was a line where I said, that's why the classical music, such as Beethoven and Bach, that's why the faces are all different and the Bachs are all the same. Great line. Spidey's great. It was awesome. Had some great moments. It was in that original version where holding Penn's hand and getting like the Dylan and Tiny Tim music originally, because the line was going to be, okay, yeah, technically that's classical Penn, but I'm talking about like old school classical, like the stuff Teller likes. That was going to be the line. So we had all that. We got on the Zoom, and I was like, little worried, concerned, like, what's the idea with cards? And they were like, well, we're not sure about tarot anymore. We went back and rewatched the original performance, and we just liked how you were with the guys. And we think this will work just as a card trick. And I mean, at the time, I didn't know, again, like, I had already sunk 2 months worth of work and writing into this. I had already paid for the consultants. We already had our sessions. We were done. Like, I wanted to do that nice and early too, so I had plenty of time leading up to it. I think if I were to do anything else, I probably could have / should have paid for and scheduled one more like in-depth session with everyone like right before, but I didn't want to cut it that close. I just wanted it to be like kind of on my own by that point. I think there's benefits to both ways. I think that's something you got to ask you and look at your own comfort level when you're doing TV and find out where you are in the process at that point. And I had other people helping me as well. Again, like Brian and a few other friends, which I'll get to in a moment. So I was like, okay, I mean, is there a reason? They're like, no, we love the script. We're, you know, you're like, we especially liked this line that you added. And I realized they've got all the versions of the scripts I've sent in front of them.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, you took that line out. Oh, why'd you take that line out? I was like, oh, because I changed it with this. Like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, cool. And so I realized, oh no, they know I'm a good student and can handle this. They're not just gonna go, yeah, let him do his thing. They're like, oh no, he can. If we throw him this in a moment, he can handle it. Okay. So they're like, are you gonna be super mad at us if we make you do like? Hopefully you learn something from this, and you're not super mad at us if we ask you to do playing cards. Hopefully you've learned something. I was like, well, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like, there's some, you know, I don't know what the premise is. If this is just regular cards, like doing it really confrontational with Penn and Teller isn't normally my style. Like, I'd want to retain some of the spirit of this and some of my character that I've built into this. Because I did a lot of character work on it with Spidey and Jermaine as well, just about how to communicate who I am and that kind of, for lack of a better term, campiness that I have when I perform. And so, and I think that kind of allowed me, especially if I was going to go on with something as hard as tarot cards, if I was campy, it was going to allow me to kind of play the tarot a little harder than I would if I was playing it serious. If that makes sense. Like I could. So, and I think tarot cards did hide the method a little bit more too, but that's a whole other discussion. So they're like, so I was like, yeah, I mean, it's your show. You're the boss. You say do it with playing cards, and you think that's the better fit for your show. You've been doing this more. You're the experts, you know. I mentioned I was a super fan of Michael Close in the Zoom at that point, and he kind of beamed at that point. I was just saying, hey, I get to talk to one of my childhood heroes. I've been a fan of his since I was a kid, and read about him in Magic Magazine, working in Vegas. And he was like, oh God, that was 97. And I was like, yeah, Bill Malone was on the cover, and he remembered that. So about a week goes by. That was the most stressful week of the whole process. And eventually they go, and during that, I did write, that's when I came up with the premise of, the story from my youth of people thinking the thing I was doing with playing cards were of the devil. Because that is a true story from my life. I went to a Christian school. We went to a convention of other Christian schools. And I had my playing cards taken away from me because playing cards were of the devil. So I was like, okay, we can draw on that from real life. We can pull that into this. And they really liked that premise, and they were like, it took them about a week to finally let me know that, yes, we were officially going in that direction. So now, this was the summer. Everyone's on their tours. Jermaine got married, so like he was, I wasn't able to reach him. So I was not fully on my own. I had some great friends like Christian Cagigal, Alex helped, Brian. There's also a Chicago mentalist. He has a penguin lecture. He's not known nearly enough by younger people in our industry. Older people know him. Ross Johnson. He is probably the best living mentalist alive. He's done Q&A more than any other human. Christopher Carter, thanks to his Penguin lectures and his book coming out, he's also a Chicago mentalist, and he's gotten more known recently. And Chris is amazing. I love that he's getting the respect and being known by our peers. Ross has been doing this as long as Chris and I have both been alive. If you combined our ages, Ross has still been doing this longer. To give you an idea of how long Ross has been doing this, he was a teacher. He was kind of into magic, and he was at a teacher's conference, and he found out another teacher was there, an older teacher was there and into it. That teacher's name was Eugene Berger. To give you an idea of how long he's been doing this. And Ross has a background in theater and writing, and he took a look at the script and gave me some lines, and he was super helpful with it. And all the way up until the end. So, final part about this before we kind of skip over till the end. This is all happening in the summer of 2023. And here in the US, the writer's strike and Screen Actors Guild strike happened. Mm-hmm. So my friend Bill Cook called me. He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm working on the script for the TV thing." And he just starts laughing. I'm like, "What?" He's like, "You're the only writer working in TV right now." This was technically an unscripted reality show that I was writing a script for a performance piece to do on the unscripted reality show. So technically, I'm not a scab.
You crossed it.
Yes. So I didn't. I'm not a member of any unions or anything. So I think I'm still a good person, but I also get to brag I was the only writer working in TV this summer, which is a fun brag. So Vegas comes. Everything's going great. In regards to the method, Michael Close's note was, look away when they cut the deck so that people don't think it's a marked deck for the people watching on camera. I do give Teller the deck at the end, but Mike Close was like, look away. Well, I started implementing his notes while I was performing this for people, and I said, hey, this is going to sound weird, but during this routine, you're going to be a Penn salesman and you're going to be a bank teller. So I will refer to each of you as Penn and Teller. And I can't tell you why. Because I wasn't going to miscall anyone or anyone during this. I wasn't going to take any chances. That was my way around that.
Everybody
loves
started
going wrong. Yeah. Well, the trick started going wrong. If you watch the explanation, you know that there's a range of all the spades. That if they cut a third, I know that Penn's card will be a spade because they've cut a third, and in that range of the deck is a spades, and that's a pretty wide range. And for the first time in my life, been doing this trick for almost half my life. Since I was 19, I'm 35 at the time of filming. It's going wrong. People aren't cutting to spades. And I realize it's because normally if they cut and they're super off, I can see it and I can just put it back and say, no, you cut a little less than that because he needs to cut some. And if I'm looking away,
you can't see that. Yeah.
I can't do that. So we get to Vegas, and I sit down with Mike Close, and we talk about that. And he points out that he actually sits down with me after one of my rehearsals. We do like one or two extra lines, and he points out that since Teller's thumb's going to be towards me, I'll be able to see his thumb, and then instantly look away. That he's got enough cards there. So as soon as I see he's got enough, I can then look away. And then it makes it look like, I'm not looking for marks, just to have that extra layer. I still felt that was a little risky, but I'm not going to ignore the advice of the greatest living magic consultant. on the longest running TV magic show of our time. Like,
Yeah.
there were also like one or two things he suggested that I just couldn't quite hit the knack on. Like, he showed how to spread the deck out face up on the table and still hide all the spades, and I just couldn't nail it. I just couldn't nail the dropping the cards and have it not look like what I was doing. He made it look so effortlessly, and I'm like, this is why you're Michael Close and I'm a mere mortal.
You're like, I'm on stage now, but to spread the cards, please welcome Michael Close.
Yes, exactly.
Give him a round of applause when he walks off stage.
Out of the truck and on stage. So he goes over it with me. It was great, and we even talked like, do Penn and like, how are Penn and Teller going to need to code this to me? And he said, well, you got the email that showed it. I was like, oh yeah, I read the whole thing. I'm asking you because it says it goes to you. How is this going to be coded? Because it's, again,
that's my biggest fear for people of being like, the fuck did he say? Like,
yeah.
Is it a fool?
The video is already the video is already on YouTube, and it's me teaching it. So it's a really cool method. I am not the kind of person who we can talk a bit more about this later on, or to go off on a slight tangent, but I don't let me be clear. I don't believe in exposing other people's methods. I don't believe in exposing marketed products. I don't believe in any of that stuff. That said, I see nothing wrong with teaching magic on the internet. I see we've talked about this before, but let me just say it again. Like, this trick, the creator is long since passed. The effect is public domain. If Roberto Giobbi can put it in a book and charge money for it, I can teach it for free. Like, I see no moral issue with that whatsoever. People still have to seek it out. And also for a method like this, I've actually had some people say to me, oh yeah, I tried watching that thing where you teach the card effect, or the card trick, and I couldn't follow it. It was really confusing. So non-magicians just, they're not looking for secrets. I think, and this is where I'll get off I'll get down from my soapbox after this method. I think the only magicians who are scared of exposure, again, not to say that exposing someone else's trick is right. It's not. That should not be done. People who say, hey, I just bought, this gimmick and here's how it works, or here's this and here's how it works on YouTube, I am not okay with. I'm not okay with that. But something that is in Carl Fulves, or something that the creator has created, or is, public domain, back a cereal box, can be put in. If you could publish it in your own beginner's book and not have to pay anyone any money, that type of stuff, I think if you're upset about that, it's because deep down you're worried that if the audience knew the secret, they would treat you as badly as you treat them. And they would hold the secret over your head as much as you hold the secret and the superiority over their head.
I like that thing of like, I always have a thing for me when I'm like going out performing. If people are talking about the tricks, I'm annoyed. I want them to talk about me as a person, that like, if I wasn't performing magic, I still want them to be entertained. And then there's also the thing for me with like the exposure stuff. Like, YouTube is great because people have to search it out. My biggest irk is the TikTok reel exposure, because I have friends who like magic and the algorithm is feeding them exposure that they don't want to see. And that's drives me mad, because it actually disappoints them, because they're like, I didn't want to know the secret and it was shoved on me. It's like they did not consent.
There's that. There is also the feeling that the methods aren't cool. Like, the methods are a disappointment.
It's like,
and that's not the truth. Methods are awesome.
Yeah.
The chameleon silk, where it's black and you shake it, it becomes a rainbow. Like, someone thought of that. That's ingenious, to just kind of go,
Yeah.
and then just to the camera, I
Oh.
think is
Who's that
without naming
fucking
names. But anyway,
guy with his girl? And
Oh
she's like,
yeah.
fuck, can we just go to the cinema and not see another fucking SpongeBob trick, dude?
Yeah.
You can just see it in her face. He must be paying her or something.
I always think the thing with the exposure thing is like me and Steve have talked about it before. My favorite thing to do when someone's like, "Oh, can I show you a trick?" and let's say they do something with like a key card or something along that line, I fool them then with the key card. The next thing I do uses that.
I've got a great story. Literally last week, someone's like, "Can I show you a trick?" And they start dealing out rows of cards. I'm like, "Here we go." But they dealt out 4 rows. I was like, "Wait."
Oh.
And they only dealt them out twice and then nailed my card. And I was like, how the fuck? And I took him aside. I was like, listen, because I have the Book of Saints from Conjuring Arts Center. Like, the fact that that trick goes back so far, it probably predates playing cards, is fascinating as well.
Yeah.
And I'll often tell people when they show that to me, I'll tell them a little bit about the history about it. And they go, wow, that's really cool. And it's fun to tell them about that. So the fact that I got to tell him the history and go, I can't tell how many times I've had to sit through the super long, boring version of this. And you did a really short version. Like, yes, if I think about it, I'll probably be able to reconstruct it. But kudos for doing a version of a centuries-old trick that a full-time professional didn't really see or recognize and really had to think about to reconstruct. So great job. Like, that's the way it should be. That's the way it should be. Anyways, so again, getting down off the soapbox for a moment. Okay, so we're in Las Vegas. Michael Close has talked to me about that, and I was like, and this is what Mike says to me. He says, here's one final thing to put you at ease. If I'll be in the truck on a headset watching all of this, if Penn doesn't have a spade, I'll radio the directors and Andrew and Lincoln and say, the trick hasn't worked. Don't let Penn and Teller know. Say that the camera's out. They have like a code of we say there's. I mean, Penn and Teller have to be somewhat hip to this, but stuff like this happens all the time. So even they're probably not sure if it's real or not when it does happen. Sure. They just say, oh, one of the cameras wasn't working, or hey, we weren't rolling on this side, or hey, we completely missed it from this angle. We need to start over. And then you'll have extra decks on you that are set up, right? I was like, oh, of course. He's like, then yeah, just take out another deck and we'll start over. And I was like, perfect. Great.
27 times the camera was not turned on. Cameraman gets fired because Joe Diamond.
Funny you should say, Mr. David Peace. Because performance. I am the last to go on. Okay, so day of performance. Real quick. I'm invited by Samantha, the producer, to come down to lunch at the little grill next to the theater. It's like a crew lunch, and since I'm the first to rehearse, she's like, come down, get free food. Well, Penn and Teller always eat in their dressing room. Guess who didn't decide to eat in their dressing room that day? Teller. So I go in, I see Teller, and we're supposed to stay hidden from them the entire time. Someone had to hide under a table earlier that week. Like, when they have to radio, like, hang on, stay here, Penn and Teller are walking on the other side of that door. We have to wait for them to pass for you to go. Like, that kind of stuff all week. Because they don't want to know who's on the show ahead of time. So I hide. Andrew and Lincoln go, hi, Joe. I'm like, hi. I'm like, okay, they're not pissed at me. So, okay. I then see Samantha. And I keep my back towards Teller, walk over. I leave all my clothes and everything in the booth. I'm like, hey, Samantha. She's like, Joe, stay on this side. I was like, I already spotted Teller. I don't think he spotted me. She's like, okay, good. I'll come around, sit in the booth, and he's only going to walk this way to go get dessert. So I'll sit at the other end of the side of the booth so I can keep an eye out. Well, Teller decides to take the long way around to go get dessert. So I have to keep my head down while eating my mashed potatoes, I don't even remember what it was. I couldn't tell you a single thing about what it tasted like. I don't know. And she waves Lincoln over to stand in front of me to block me from another side. And Lincoln's like, keep your head down, young man. I want to see mashed potatoes on the end of your nose. And I'm just like, I've never felt more in trouble and part of a team at the same time. So we go in. I'm first to rehearse. Rehearsal goes fine. Like on the stage, I see my name on the screen. I see the big Joe Diamond card that they made. Like all of it. Like, this is great. I'm here. I'm on the stage. We do the rehearsal. Awesome. Hanging out backstage. All the other acts come through. We're hanging out. We're chatting. It's fun. They're all leaving, and I'm the last. I found a table that looked like the table upstairs I was going to be performing on. It was more faded, and I'm just running the script. I have like 8 decks with me. So I put 4 in the pocket, and I just ran through 3 at a time and then reset them. So I would still have 1 ready to rehearse if I had to rehearse 1 more time, and the others in the jacket ready to go. Just kept rotating. We're in like the workshop. So I look, we're surrounded by Penn and Teller props. There were the blast off props, the clear box that Teller moves around in. That was there. There was a road case that just had the word water tank on it. Like we're surrounded by the Penn and Teller memorabilia museum down there. And so I'm just rehearsing, drilling, because it's, drilling the script, getting as comfortable with it as possible, the moves, because the only moves I did were the false shuffles and cuts up front. Went through all the GOB false cuts and false shuffles downloads to just show the deck and have it ready to go. Go up for the rehearsal. I'm waiting. I'm getting mic'd up. I can say this: the Cosmic Romantics, who are in the season premiere of the show, were on right before me, and I saw them get their trophy from off stage before I go on. So it's like, get that out of your head, Joe. Get that out of your head. That's not why you're here. You are here to be the best version of yourself. Reading Darren Brown's Notes from a Fellow Traveler book as well, how much he just drills. It's about the performer's personality, not the tricks. Just even when the tricks go wrong, here's how to still keep the audience on your side, despite all of that. And I tricked myself in my brain by saying, okay, assume Penn and Teller were scrolling through their phones during the downtime and just randomly came across the Scam Nation video and watched it. And they know they don't even have to think about how this is done. They just watched how it's done. Like, not an hour ago, not they read it, it's in the back of they just watched it. Because odds are some people who watched the video on YouTube are then going to click on this performance.
Might even be suggested.
Yeah. I can't control which one they click on first. They might click on that one first and then this, or vice versa, or whatever. So let go of that. Let it go. Go out and be the best possible version of yourself. And it turned out Brian Brushwood was actually in the audience for the taping for this as well, which was extra special as well. So my name's on the screen. Penn and Teller are at the table. I'm mic'd up. They tell me to go out. They're already sat in their chairs. Penn says, "Hey, Joe, good to see you." Now, real quick, I had met them when I was 20 after their show. They don't know who I am. So yes, I've met them, like how he's like, "Oh yes, I've met Penn and Teller," because everyone meets them after.
Yeah.
They were really nice. They were really cool, blah, blah, blah. But
I have a photo with hair on top and no hair down here.
Exactly. That it was actually the one time I met Johnny Thompson was after their show. Because I looked over and saw Johnny and went over and introduced myself. Actually, the reason I was able to introduce myself to Johnny Thompson was because at the time, my mentor, Marshall Brodeen of TV Magic Cards fame here in the Chicagoland area, was good friends with Johnny. So I went over and introduced myself to Johnny. He said hi, everything, came back. So I come out. Penn says, "Hey, Joe, good to see you," shakes my hand, and Teller, very sincerely, looks right at me and just goes, "Hello, I'm Teller." I know. Your name's there. Your head's on the side of the... Pleasure to meet you. It's an honor. I take the cards out and I look at Teller. I go, "Hey, do you know if Brian Brushwood made it? He's a friend. He's a mutual friend." And he kind of perks up. He's like, "Oh, no, I haven't seen him." I was like, "Yeah, he was actually in my audition video for this." He's like, "Oh, wonderful. So are you from Texas as well?" I said, "No, I'm from the Chicagoland area. Growing up, Marshall Brodeen was a good friend and mentor." And they both go, "Oh, yeah, Marshall, he was great." Now I've got the deck on the table. And Penn points at the deck and goes, so that's a stripper deck, right?" And I go, "TV Magic cards." And they both laugh. And then Teller goes, "Svengali deck, also known as a many tekel deck." So it's like, perfect. I yes-anded Penn, set up Teller. Like, I ingratiated myself into the 45-year like showbiz relationship. Let's go. And we go into the performance. The audience has seen Penn and Teller perform, as well as all the other acts. And I'm the last one coming out to do a card trick. Now, in the studies that Joshua J. has done and other people, like in this Psychology of Magic book that Gustav Kuhn put out with Vanishing Ink, they talk about like the importance of a good introduction and the importance of like saying you've been on TV, saying you've done awards, all this other stuff, and how that legitimately impacts like the quality of the show for people. You don't get that with Fool Us. It's Brooke reading your introduction on the cue card or the teleprompter, which was just, we couldn't get Joe Hart, Joe Spade, or Joe Club, so here's Joe Diamond, which I'll take it. That's fine. It's not the intro I would have written, but that's why I didn't write it. Like, that's why they have other people do it. Oh, real quick, too, just very, very quick shout out to Ray Green, the person who made the package, the green screen package beforehand. We got to talking about old B movies. If you know Stuart Gordon of Reanimator fame, he was a good friend of his while he was alive. So we got to nerd out about Stuart Gordon. He got to tell me some stories about him. So we spent all day Monday, Sunday, 2 days before filming for like that 90-second thing. Can't tell you how maddening it is to try and hit a mark in front of a green screen because it's a green screen, but the camera is also a certain distance, so you still have to hit your mark. It's so strange. But him and the whole crew were very patient, very cool. It was a blast. So wanted to mention that just in this.
I wonder how many puns they had lined up for that introduction. Because I was thinking something along the lines of, up next we have Joe Cole, but he's been under a lot of pressure lately, so please welcome Joe Diamond. And then boom. Yeah, I'd say like they had about
he's
20
a girl's best
puns.
friend, so here's Joe Diamond, all that.
Yeah. Get ready to sparkle.
Yeah.
Get ready to sparkle.
So I go into the routine, and here's the other thing too. Have either of you been to the Penn and Teller Theater at the Rio?
I saw their show there.
No.
You saw their show there. Okay. All right. So big, beautiful theater, 2 balconies. There's only an audience on the ground floor for the taping. But when you're up on stage, you're super far back because they've built in the center aisle where they go and sit in that platform. And that's right in front of you. So the audience is super far away. They feel a million miles away. Like some of those corporate events where it feels like there's the dance floor and it feels like they're in another room. Yeah. This is that times 100, and I'm doing a card trick. I'm not doing a stage illusion. I'm doing a card trick. on the biggest stage in Vegas, and the audience is further away than usual. Yes, there's screens and all that, but it's like, and yes, now in my head I knew play to the cameras. Like, yes, you have a responsibility to the audience here, but there's way more people who are going to see you through this lens. Like, don't acknowledge a line if it bombs or anything. Act like you're killing. They can edit around it, whatever. And it's going well. Penn and Teller are chuckling at some of the jokes. They're getting very like thoughtful, like huh, or like responses. I'm not dying, but I'm not like crushing with every joke either. Again, I knew they would play it up for TV, and again, I also know the audience is super far away, so they might be responding, and I just can't hear them. Can you still hear me? My head.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, it just went mute for a second.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, I don't know why they just disconnected and connected. Funny, there's a mic issue when I get to this point in the story. Because my head's turned. I've also taken my eyes off Penn and Teller while they're shuffling. So we're at the point in the presentation where Teller looks at his card. Teller can shuffle his cards, just a reminder of the process or procedure of the trick. Teller can shuffle his cards as much as he wants, but once he looks at his card and puts it back on top, he can't shuffle that packet. He needs to pick up another packet to shuffle. And Mike Close and the producer suggested I hand that off to Penn so that it can just be dropped down. Because normally I would say, and you've shuffled these, right? Oh, well, then shuffle those. And that kind of distracts people. And they were like, well, we don't want you looking back at that packet. So just do it this way. And it's like, okay, you're the experts. So I kept my eyes off Teller, the sneaky bastard. So I asked Penn, has he put his card back? And Penn says, yes. And he's shuffling it back into the packet. Now, I go into this is where it all goes slow motion. Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock. Whoosh. This mustn't register on an emotional level. Whoosh. You know, everything's slow motion, and the whole matrix like comes out ahead of me, like right click, dislocate jaw, choo choo, all that. And I think, don't react. Mike has seen this. He'll be coming to save you on the God mic at any moment. Just continue on. Don't let on that this is the moment. This is an important method moment. Right? And just keep going. Because also when I told Penn to shuffle his card back into the deck during the taping, Teller literally went like kind of turned his head and like furrowed his brow like, what's going on here? Like he wasn't quite sure what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And in my head, I was like, I got you. But I was like, no. I literally thought, no, that's not why you're here. That's a bonus. That's a bonus if it happens. That is not the primary mission. You know, you worked on that months ago with all the consultants to work on the trick.
Yeah.
You are now here to be the best you. So I'm just waiting for God's voice to come down and save me, which is ironic because the whole routine is about being in Christian school and being in league with the devil and how the Christian schooling didn't take. And much like real life, art imitated life, God's voice didn't show up to save me. So the deck is assembled on the table, and I need to start finding these cards. So, like, where are they? Where's the promised, hey, I'll tell them this is what's going to happen. So I go, it's assembled and Mike, are we good? and I said it into my mic. Like, I literally asked Mike Close, Mike, are we good? Because I was like, this princess has to save herself. No one's coming to save her. Me being the princess in this analogy. It's like, so the producers get on the God mic and they're like, hey, Joe, your mic is fine, but one of the cameras wasn't rolling. We do need to start over. And the audience goes, ah. I was like, it's okay. It's okay. I pick up the deck. I'm putting it away. Hey, it's fine. I just wanted, I was told to enjoy every moment here. I just wanted to really enjoy every moment with Penn and Teller. I pick up the deck, put it away in the box. I'm like, so where do you want me to start from? Do you want me to start from just my opening jokes? And they go, nope, we're going to have Brooke reintroduce you. She's set to go. And I look over, Brooke's already on her mark. My introduction's already back up on the teleprompter. And I'm still holding the unusable deck in my hands. And all eyes in the room are on me. So they go, Joe, are you ready? And I go, almost, hang on. I just put that deck in one pocket, took a deck out of another pocket, took it out of the box, looked at Penn, looked at Teller, looked at the audience, said, what? I'm psychic. I knew this would happen. Slammed it on the table. Now I'm ready. I just owned it as, yeah, it's a stacked deck. What are you going to do about it? And the audience bursts into applause. Penn and Teller laugh. And almost everything you see on TV, from what I can tell and kind of repiece back together, is all from that second performance. Now, here's the thing. Penn and Teller now know the deck is stacked. Like, I feel like the false shuffles I put in at the front and like displaying the deck, it looked pretty legit. And you're not sure, I do still feel like if you don't know where the trick's going, you'd be hard pressed to know how it could be stacked if it was stacked at the start, how it could have been. I also threw in a move where this is a quick little tease if anyone wants to subscribe to the lecture. But I noticed that if I did an optical shuffle, it would look good from Penn's side, but not from Teller's side. He would see that the bottom card never changed. So I literally put 2 cards on the bottom, making the last one the 3 of clubs. So after doing an optical shuffle, I could run 2 cards so that the 3 of clubs would end up on the bottom of the deck. So Teller would see that bottom card change, so that Teller wouldn't know if I was doing an optical shuffle or not, from his perspective. Like, that's the level of which I thought about these false shuffles up top. The thing I didn't think about is that if I'm doing that all a second time, and Penn and Teller know that the deck is starting off stacked, and they're going to have a chance to see how choreographed and how tight that opening monologue was with all those false shuffles and cuts, they have a second chance to see it all. And they have another chance to see the procedure. So as I'm going into it, it just becomes apparent to me that, oh, they have a second chance. They're going to know this. They have a second chance to see the whole procedure over again. And I'm not taking my eyes off of them. So I'm going to be able to say what's important and what's not. So they're going to know now what's important and what's not this second time through. So I felt like even going out there, like I tried to put it out of my mind so much because I knew I had like a 50-50 shot. Like I truly didn't know. Like there's some people who go out there and they're like, I know I'm not going to fool them with this, so I'm going to have fun. I truly didn't know. So it was like I was kind of in this weird no man's land. But now that I just knew, oh, there's no way. They're getting a second glimpse at this. They're gonna know. They've definitely read Card College, and they're gonna realize, oh, that packet's important now, or oh, I can put it back but not shuffle. Got it. And I don't know if this happened just to me because of it, or I don't know if it was because of that specifically, or because I just didn't let it faze me, or if it was everything. But now when I'm telling all the jokes, the audience laughed harder. And Penn and Teller, like when I told Teller to keep an eye on me, Teller made those big eyes at me. Like before, he just kind of looked at me and kind of smiled, but now he really leaned in. And when I asked Penn if he felt a tingling sensation, before I could even ask him, do you feel it? He just went, me too. Like before I could even ask, he just said it. And it was perfectly timed because we had just did it. And it's funny because I was born in Woodstock where they filmed the movie Groundhog Day with Bill Murray. And this is the closest I've been to a real life Groundhog Day scenario. Because everyone in the room had all seen me do this exact script a minute, 5 minutes earlier. So we all had this collective deja vu, but it was sincerely funnier the second time. Like, no one was in on it. Like, yes, you're in on it, and that's a TV show, and you applaud when they say applaud, and now, you clap while we film you clapping, that kind of stuff. But like
a lot of people in the audience be thinking as well, oh my God, that poor guy, that he was doing so well and the camera cut out. Oh, and now you have everybody on your side.
Well, that too, and because I didn't have a diva freak out, and because I just kind of rolled with it and had fun, that kind of endeared me more to the audience, endeared me more to Penn and Teller. And I was able to just truly let go, not just almost entirely let go. Because again, there's that moment in that first performance where I was like, oh, I got you. No. Turn that part of your brain off. I could just fully let go of that and just be in the moment and be present. That said, the editing helped me very much. The block of spades, when I'm spreading through the deck to take out the jokers, if you watch, you'll see when they cut from the overhead to the front when I'm spreading over that block of spades. Also, you know the method, Penn picked the 10 of spades. That meant Teller's card was the 20th from the bottom. I cannot count 20 cards that fast. And I definitely double checked, because that was the other tension at that moment too. When I go, this is my moment of truth, and you see that relief, that is not acting. Because again, I never got to this point in the first performance, because now I can't fuck this up. If we have to do this a third time, all this goodwill I have is going to be gone. Oh, we have to do this a third time now because he's an idiot who can't find the, like my little niece can find the card on the first try. Like what? Like, so the pressure was extra on that second time. So I definitely counted those 20 cards. I was like, and I think I even said, I'm going to double check for the edit. I think I even said that out loud. I think I said that. And when the deck was reassembled on the table, I said, and we're all caught up. I pulled a Deadpool and went, all caught up, looked at the audience and said that. Just because, like, I knew it was a 10, so I knew I was great. I have to count 20 cards now. Thanks, Penn, or Teller, for whoever got the cards. Super deep. And then, so I was like, okay, let's double check.
And so, 10, it's like it's a close call to Mike having to step in again.
Well, so so very quickly, you can see the rest of it. The only other thing I'll say is never give anyone who going over the bust in that show, say whatever you want about me, but never give anyone grief about their bust on that show ever, because you can't hear Penn and Teller. Think about this. Penn and Teller are facing you and they're a million miles away. All the speakers in the auditorium, in the theater, are pointed out towards the audience. You can't hear Penn. So when people are going, it's because you can't hear him. It's the one time in your that theater is built for the sound to go the opposite direction. So you genuinely can't hear Penn. So in the clip, he says, you give it such a street level. I thought he said streak. I thought he was saying like a streak of spades. I thought he was using a code word. So what's actually cut out, what's not in the edit is I said, because the way Brian and I set it up is whatever they say for the code, I repeat it back. So you think so it sounds like you're saying you think there's a streak of something. I'm so glad you said that because I had a premonition that, and then that was the lead into the I will not fool Penn and Teller bit. And the only, the note from Brian was walk off stage like it's the trophy. Like this is what you were going for. Also, I got to hug Brooke Burke. Like that was not planned. They asked about some stories Brooke could ask about, and I told them about that story, which is 100% true. I told way more jokes about palm reading up front because I still realized like I'm in Penn and Teller's theater, 10 years of bullshit, 10 years of, 45 years of skepticism and, friends with James Randi, all that. So I think I said the first line of, may I take your hand? I was like, oh, it's a shame. It's still attached to your arm. Well, I guess I can, I was doing all the cheesy jokes just to be like, don't take this seriously if you tune in at this point, Penn and Teller. I said something about, are we soulmates? Well, it depends. What are our shoe sizes? Ha ha ha. Maybe we're soulmates that way. All those jokes. So yeah. So I actually said, so when they said, it's edited, like Penn goes, I don't think you fooled us. And then I say the Schwartz is with you. There's a chunk in there where I said, where Brooke asks, did they give you enough clues? I said, I believe so. It sounds like you said there was a streak of something. And Penn goes, no. We went to card college. We went to all 5 semesters, studied under Professor Giobbi. And that's when I said, so the Schwartz is with you. And that's when it cut in. So all that is cut out, for time, for clarity, all that stuff. And I did not tell any of the producers. I did not tell Lincoln. I did not tell Mike. I did not tell anyone about the prediction. Because I figured if they hate it, they'll make me go back out and walk off again.
Yeah.
If they hate it. Brian said he didn't think that would happen. He said not to, and they were giving me so many notes on everything else. I didn't want a million notes on the thing that I may or may not have to do. Because again, I didn't know. Like I felt it was a solid right down the middle. They're either going to know this or they're not.
Did you have another out in case you did in the other pocket? I predict
I
will.
The other out's the fucking trophy. Like that's the other out.
But you could predict you could get the trophy.
You don't have to. You've got the trophy. That's a hat on a hat. You don't need that at that point.
But he didn't tell us about the out.
Well. So here's the thing. Everyone on that show who I feel have done great on the show and outside of it have all had a great walk-off bit. Piff played Mr. Piffles as bagpipes. Jonathan Burns took out a participation trophy. He eventually went on to do America's Got Talent. Why can't I think of his name right now? He put out the tarot trick. Ben Seidman. He has the bit where he, on his second appearance, he's like, it's okay, I bought Handsome Jack's trophy off of him and pulled his out of the case or something. So I think the people who do the best on that show, and Brian, had the thing of like, yeah, people asked to examine the bill and he tore up the bill and started eating it. I think the people who do best on that show make the bust and interview into something. They think they're just going on to do their trick. They need to, no, it's everything. The package, the post interview, and all the way to you walking off stage.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to see someone lose it. Like when Penn and Teller go, I think you didn't fool us. You're like, why do you think you're so smart standing here judging me? And just lose it and have like security run out and like dragging you off and you're like kicking and screaming, losing your mind. Apparently that has happened for real.
Yeah, I believe it.
Not quite that extreme, but they're not but it has never aired. But yeah, they're like, we're not gonna air an argument. The other thing too, a little bit behind the scenes. I don't think I'm breaking too much kayfabe by saying this, but there's a code within the code. So the producers and Mike make the call as to whether or not they're fooled, not Penn and Teller.
Yeah.
So if they are on the earpiece, if they hear Penn and Teller make the call, give their guess, if Penn and Teller are wrong, they say, that's not it. And we were told this. They said, Penn and Teller will ask you a direct question that you can say no to. Say no so that they can say you fooled us and the trophy will come down. If they give you clues, whether you caught it or not, they will say, those are the clues. I don't think you fooled us. And suddenly that made sense too, because I was like, oh yeah, this makes total sense. Like, that's why it's because sometimes it's like, wait, why did they guess a deck switch when he went nowhere near his pockets? It's so that the person on stage can just very cleanly say, no, I did not do that. And they can go, well, you fooled us, in a very clean, not because they have had a few back and forths with a few performers over the years. And this is where they've gotten it to that point.
Yeah, I remember an early on one. I think it was Jabrizi or something where they thought they'd got it and he was like, no, but it was like a technicality or something. And there was a bit of back and forth.
There was a couple technicalities, and it's also going the opposite way. One person, Simon something, he did like a version of Three Fly, and he was like, yeah, you got it. And they said something later on about like, oh yeah, like those gimmick chips that one guy used. And the one consultant was like, wait, no, he wasn't using gimmick chips. Those were our chips. Wait, what? So they went back and they were like, oh no, this is not how we thought it was done at all. And they actually brought the guy back and revealed that actually you were just nice. And we're assholes. You totally fooled us fair and square. Here's your trophy. We're sorry it's late.
It's as you say, it's about being the best version of you. So it's like either way, you don't want that, like the image of you being on stage arguing about getting a trophy. It's just like, it's been great to be here. Thanks so much, guys. Love you.
Well, and I've heard multiple lay people say, when the show first came out, I heard multiple people say, I love watching that show because I know Penn and Teller are way smarter at Magic than me. So I know they're working. I don't try to figure it out because I know they're working on it for me.
Yeah.
Like I just watch it, which is great because it's like, this addresses the challenge aspect by setting it aside for some people, which is great.
It's as Penn says, the whole idea of the show wasn't really a competition. It was to prove that there's no stooging, no pre-show, and no camera tricks. Yeah, that is why it's a competition. Like they just wanted the show to show good magic. That was the whole idea.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Just like the trick is the excuse to showcase our personality, the premise fool us is the excuse to show the performers. Like for everyone. Like of course. So I walk off. I'm congratulated by Samantha going, did they know you were going to do that? I was like, no, because I didn't know if I was going to need it or not. Do you have clearance to leave? She's like, yeah, everyone's packing up. I was like, okay, well then, and Andrew and Lincoln obviously liked it. They either hated it so much they're like, we're not spending another second on this jerk. Or they loved it so much they're like, great, we're done. We have 2 takes and him walking off. Let's send everyone home. There's 2 quotas or codas for the end of the story. Codas. Hey, plug the1914.com. 2 codas for the story. The first is the next morning at breakfast. I'm waiting for my car to come. I'm checked out of my room. I'm just at like the American Grill eating breakfast, waiting for my flight. I look over and I see Andrew. Was it Andrew or Lincoln? Let me double check my notes real quick. One of the producers eating breakfast, and they're finishing up right around the same time as me. So I'm like, hey, You've been sending them stuff for 10 years. They've helped a lot. Well, it was Lincoln, yeah. Earlier in the day earlier, Andrew came over to like ask me to go over the method with him again. He's like, yeah, it's a really smart method, really cool. Slight foreshadowing. That was at lunch when I was hiding from Teller. But Lincoln, so I see Lincoln, I go over, I say, Lincoln, this was a dream come true. It was an honor to work with you. Thank you for the opportunity. I said, Joe, we're going to add those two things together. It's going to look great. The other thing too, real quick, just to kind of close this gap, seeing Brian immediately off stage was great to just have someone from outside of my head who saw the performance go, this is how it went. This is how it felt. The audience liked it. This is how it's going to look on camera as someone who's done the show. Like, you got nothing to worry about. Like, I would have been so stuck in my head. Oh my God, we did 2 performances if Brian was not there. So another shout out to Brian about that. So I thank Lincoln, say thank you again. Says, Joe, we'll edit it together. We'll look great. We were all arguing though. We couldn't figure out how'd you know Penn's card wasn't a spade? What now? Yeah, Teller cut too deep in the first take. We went back and watched the footage. He had like the 3 of diamonds or something. So Penn didn't have a spade. How'd you know to cut and move on before starting to pump for the card? Because I start to reveal Penn's card before I pick up the deck, which I think is very deceptive for someone who doesn't know where the trick's going and everything.
Yeah.
But I would have been pumping for the card and been like, well, this screwed up. We have to start over. And that would have made me just, again, look like an idiot to the audience and everything else. And I went, no, it wasn't Penn's card. Teller shuffled when he wasn't supposed to. He goes, oh, yeah, Penn's card was a diamond. It was not a spade. And I just looked at him and went, the magic gods saved me. And he said, have a good flight. He said, don't worry, it'll come out great. And I just kind of walked away in a daze. But barcodes, check out, van picks me up. Did you have fun on the filming? Because like you're picked up and driven by people like who know you're there for the filming and stuff. Yeah. I'm just in a daze. I'm like, if Teller hadn't shuffled, I wouldn't have known to code it. I wouldn't have had the goodwill of the audience. I wouldn't have had all of that. We filmed on August 8th. This trick was taught to me by Eugene Berger. And in 2017, the day he passed away was August 8th.
That's mad.
So on the anniversary of Eugene's passing, his ghost came back from beyond the veil to make Teller shuffle the cards after he cut too deep. I must have seen his thumb. It's hard to get. His thumb must have cut, and then just as I turned away, grabbed more. Like,
Yeah.
because I saw he had a good range, and then I looked away in that first take. I did not take my eyes off him for the second take. If you look, I'm looking at that packet for way longer than Michael Close said I should have been. But also, the mystery I've had since that day has been, well, why didn't they stop it? Why didn't they go, hey, we need to start over right from the beginning? Well, we're filming this on Wednesday, February 7th. The show aired on February 2nd. Once it aired, I sent out emails. Like, the other thing, too, thank everyone. Like, I sent thank yous. I did a few public thank yous on Facebook, but I also sent thank you emails and texts to Samantha, to the PAs that I followed on Instagram backstage, because we all were hanging out and just killing time. It was actually him who told me like the lineup and that I was on last. So it was like, okay, and I'm just messaging, thanking everyone. And I emailed Mike Close to say thank you. And Mike emailed back saying, I'm glad it turned out well. I believe, so sorry I wasn't able to give you any last minute notes on the day you were filming. I believe that was the day I was in the hospital. And I realized, that's why Andrew was asking me extra questions about the method for my trick. And that's why Lincoln was asking them extra questions about the method of theirs. And that's when I realized, Mike wasn't there.
Mhm.
Still what the hell?
So I was doubly, triply saved by the magic gods / Ghost of Eugene Berger / myself / all of it. And if it had come out any other way, if I had just gotten through the trick first take, I wouldn't have had as good of a performance on camera. But if I had screwed it up, I wouldn't have had the warmth of the. If it had gone any other way, I will take. And here's the other thing: what's the prize? You go back and you perform a second time for Penn and Teller, and you get the trophy. I performed for Penn and Teller a second time. What's that?
You could have tried to save Teller's card. So if you were like, Teller shuffle, you spot it and you go,
sure.
By the way, did you show it to Penn? Oh, you didn't. Take another one, show it to Penn, now put it on top. And then you'd still be fucked because Penn didn't pick his spade.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So that also, yes, we know, like in any other show, if they do that, force a card, key card it, do something else, there's a million ways to get out of it, but that's not the rules of the show.
Ambitious card or two.
Yeah, exactly. So, I believe in magic, real magic.
You met the biggest skeptics in the world, and now you believe in ghosts.
well, yeah, and that's the other thing too. Like, you perform. So the prize is you go back and you perform on Penn and Teller's stage a second time, and you get the trophy. I will gladly trade that trophy for a hug from Brooke Burke. Yeah. She is lovely. She is wonderful. She is more gorgeous in person. The camera is unkind to her. That's how beautiful she is in person. Like, how you meet like some people and like, you're like, you're much prettier on camera. Like, okay, we've all met, met semi-famous people or worked with people, who create content or whatever. And like, there's some people who have like a certain look, for example, and he's a very good looking man. So let me back up on this real quickly. But through complete coincidence, I'm texting buddies with the actor Thomas Lennon, who's the shorts guy from Reno 911. And he wrote the Night at the Museum movies, and he's friends with Weird Al and all that stuff. He's been to a few of my shows, and he gave me a video testimonial. And like, when he doesn't have like the mustache and like looks like the guy from Reno 911, he just looks like a guy. He just looks like someone's dad, and you go, kind of looks like so-and-so, or he could pass for, that one famous guy, like that's how it, like he kind of looks like that. Like, sure, when he's on camera, you're like, that is that guy from Reno 911. But in person, you're just like, vaguely like that guy. He could probably pass for his brother or something. Or a better looking version of that guy. Cause again, the Reno 911 character is a little goofy. But so there's some people like that in show business. But Brooke Burke, oh my God, she is under the harsh fluorescent lighting of the back hallway lights of the theater. I passed her on the way to rehearsal, and she looked gorgeous. Like, it was like, oh my God, like not under the TV lights, everything. It was like, wow. And all I was thinking during the hug was like, this is amazing, don't be creepy. This is amazing, don't be creepy. This is amazing, don't be creepy. I think I like 60-40 averaged that. I'm not sure. But yeah, I wouldn't change anything else. I'm glad. I feel like too, if I had done tarot cards, it would have been about the props and not about me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wonder if it had just come to that with them. I wonder. I mean, I'll never know what was in Andrew and Lincoln's heart for why they decided to change back to playing cards. But that second version, like the edit came out great. There's only one joke that didn't make it to air, which was when I say it could have been worse. They could have tried burning me at the stake. And then the line they cut, which was from Ross Johnson, was they tried once, but that was a misunderstanding. But that ended up on the cutting room floor, which again was probably for time or whatever.
Steve was actually burnt at the stake. That was fun.
Yeah. Nice.
It didn't take.
Nice. Yeah. That didn't take. Yeah, that didn't take.
Joe,
So
when you
it was
did the last rehearsal before you went on, were Penn and Teller in that last dress rehearsal?
No. There were stand-ins
Okay.
for Penn and Teller, and a stand-in for Brooke as well.
Yeah.
They're not in the dress rehearsal. They don't know who's coming out until the name's on the screen and you walk out on stage.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that's good.
Yeah, because and I think that's part. I mean, it's their show, but also they don't. I think they genuinely don't want to know. They don't want to be researching everyone's techniques and methods. Also, that'd be maddening having to could you imagine if they took the competition seriously and researched all 60 acts up front and bought all their books and was okay, they tend to they like sticky cards, or they like dual reality, or they could you, oh my God, that'd be so maddening.
You'd have to go on with the opposite thing and be like, they'd be the biggest mentalist in the world. You'd have Peter Turner coming on doing SpongeBob routines just to try and fuck with them. To be I'm doing hippity hoppity rabbits, lads. You're fucked.
Yeah. So it was truly a great experience. I hope there was, for you and the listeners, I mean, this is an amazing story. It's one of those showbiz stories that as it was happening and as I was telling people, as it immediately after I was telling my wife and one or two friends, they were like, oh my God, this is not your average. Yeah, I take the TV show. We'll see if it goes where. There's just so much that happened with this. And now that it's out and the footage actually looks good, that's the other thing, which is all this work went into it, and you know how it is too when you make content and everything. It's I would have changed this. And of course there's little nitpicks I have about it, but they're so minor. I had a really nice false cut that they cut away from, where I cut the cards to the table at the end, and I put a lot of work into it, and it just doesn't. You don't see it on camera at all. And I'm like, man, all that work, but you never know. I mean, if what's going to be important for the filming, for all that, it's you put it all in to give yourself the best chance of coming across to the people. And again, the fact that Darren's book came out this summer and he talked so much about just eating shit on stage and being well, this screwed up and here's how I got out of it, or here's how I just owned it, or here's how
people who don't have that book as well. I have classified it now as my favorite book of any genre. I'm obsessed with it. I couldn't put it. I don't read much. I just don't. I don't enjoy it. But that book I read in 2 days, and I'm about to reread it again. And I'm it's going to be one of those things that it's an annual read.
I've seen a few people complain about it's just him complaining about being on the road and being this. It's
not for you then.
Have you had to be on the road? Have you had to have you had to deal with someone who has a way higher opinion of yourself? It's so annoying. It's oh my God, everyone's oh, that sounds awful, but no, it's draining. It is seriously. Luke had a great talk, a great thing in one of his talks. People talk about creative work, the arts, all this stuff. Yeah, it's not digging a ditch, and he's yes, it is. You're just digging the ditches in your mind.
Yeah.
And I've dug so many ditches in my mind. and then had to fill them back in because it turns out those weren't needed, or we had something else over here that we needed to move, or like that's all it is. And sometimes you have to do that for the career, for yourself, for other people. And yes, it's very gratifying when someone is like, "Oh my God, it's you," or "Oh my God, show them the thing," or "Oh my God, I saw you on this thing." I had a really, really shitty bar gig a few months ago, like a month before this aired. Without going into details, because names and such. But this last summer in the area, there's one of America's last drive-in movie theaters is in operation, and I have pre-show videos of interactive stuff that plays before the movies. And I'll get randomly recognized from that, like, all the time. And I had this girl, I'm packing up my stuff from this very okay bar show, and this person afterwards was very much a pain, client, booker, pain in the butt, usual showbiz, just, I want to go home and just pour myself a drink and just, but I have to pack up all my crap and then drive the hour and a half home and all this. It's January 3rd, and it was like, I took the gig because I was like, I want to work on some new material and stuff. But
January is a bit quiet usually anyway as well, so it's like
I actually had a very quiet December. My January and February have been packed, and this happened, so it's even more packed.
Strange.
So yeah, so it's been very weird. So I was okay with taking it for that, but the bar thought apparently they were Carnegie Hall and were gonna get like that, even though their venue didn't have step. But whatever. It was a Wednesday night and they quoted a good amount, so I was like, okay, fine. But I'm tired. I still got paid, but it still wasn't one of those glamorous nights. I'm just packing up, and this like 21-year-old girl comes up and she goes, "Oh my God, it is you." She has a deck of cards in her hand and she's like, "I've been following you on Instagram since I saw your videos at the outdoor. I'm a huge fan. I'm so sorry I didn't get a chance to come over here and watch your show. I was busy working in the other area where the bowling alley is." Yeah, that's how classy this space is. It's a bar/bowling alley. And she's like, "I'm so sorry I missed it. But I just grabbed these from the case over there. Could I just bug you to sign these real quick?" And it was like, yeah, of course. And like, yes, I was tired, and yes, there was a part of me like I get the people who are like, "I'm tired. I don't want to deal with people. I don't want to do." So I get the people who are like, "Oh, I met this celebrity," and like on one level, I totally empathize with both sides of that. But like being able to just kind of set that ditch aside and just being able to go and have this one-on-one connection, because that's what it's about too. You dig all those ditches to get to these kinds of connections. And like, and for me, I just kind of was like, well, I didn't get it from this gig, from this crowd, this client. This is what it's about. Like, the moments like this. And I performed just one thing for her, one quick card thing, and said, hope to see another show, and thank you so much. You made my night. And she was happy. I was happy. And like, that's what it's ultimately about. Those
me
types
back
of
to
moments.
the thing you were saying of like emailing everyone and messaging everyone after the show came out, thanking them. And I think it's something that's like so important. Like you mentioned how important it is, but you never know as well. Like there's two parts of it. One, it's nice to be nice. But in TV and like film stuff, the guy who's the runner on this show in 6 years' time could be the lead producer of this other thing. And if you were a dick to them, they'll remember. And if you would just treated them like a decent human being should, they'll remember too.
Yeah.
It's huge. You meet people. Margot Robbie has a thing set up with just people who were like crew on a movie that she was just hanging out with, and now they all run a production company together. Like that stuff.
Yeah.
Like be nice to the people. Everyone, don't just be nice to people you think are important.
And we may have talked about this on when I was first on the show. But during the lockdown, I did some Zoom events for LinkedIn, and I had people asking, "How'd you land a corporate gig like that?" And I had done a small local. It's not really a beauty competition. It's Miss McHenry. It's now it's now called a scholarship competition. Where like they go out, talk, and they do all these charity events for the year. And at the pageant, I went out and performed while the judges were making their decisions, because all these businesses that sponsored them were there. All these girls' families were there. Everyone was there. And the first year I did it, when I was 19, 20, and she was like 18, 19, Sarah, that first Miss McHenry, now works at LinkedIn in Washington, D.C. Like you never know. The world is getting smaller and smaller. Yeah, so I don't, I'm a huge advocate. I actually got specially made branded thank you notes to send to people. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got from like a magic business or entertainer business podcast was to get Starbucks cards, and write "thanks a latte" on them and give them to clients, give them to crew, give them to staff. I didn't do that at Fool Us because I don't know what the rules are with TV production, all that. Just be nice and send emails back and everything. And like I even waited till it aired to again email everyone, because I don't know what the precedent is on this stuff or whatever. So it was like, just make sure I'm in that range. But yeah, like you never know. Like you said, be nice. It's nice to be nice. Do your best. And because here's the other thing too. Here's why you should be nice. Because you're gonna piss people off through no fault of your own.
Yeah.
I have pissed people off. I have tried to make it right. I have tried to apologize. Some people have accepted the apology. Some people have not. I've tried to explain. I've tried to say it was a misunderstanding. And we're talking personal and professional, and we won't go into all that, of course. But that's just going to happen on its own. So why make that number bigger?
Yeah.
If it's going to happen, you could. One of the most nicest people in all of show business. We'll finish up with this because it's brings it back around to my hometown, Woodstock, Illinois. The movie Groundhog Day. The actor Stephen Tobolowsky, who plays Ned Ryerson. It's Ned Ryerson. He tells a story in his Tobolowsky Files podcast and in his audiobook about this woman who, when he was in theater school, who like legitimately like lied, like a teacher who like tried to lie and sabotage his grade and like all these awful things. And like his first night on Broadway, she was friends with someone else in the cast, came backstage, said hi to them, walked past his dressing room, and while walking past his dressing room yelled, "You're still no good." And like he has no idea what he did to anger her, to upset her, to any of that stuff. And he talks about, learning to kind of come to terms with that, her, all this other stuff. And like, yeah, it's that's going to happen to the nicest, most hardest working people in our industry. It's going to happen to the rest of us. So we may as well just work as hard as possible to be as nice as possible and, try to learn from our mistakes and try to own them and, not try not to be defined by them. Try to continue to do good work in spite of our worst days and stay vigilant. And yeah, it's yeah, there will be days where you've got the crummy show where only one person comes up to you afterwards saying it's an honor to meet you, and then a month later you're on national TV. So this is such a weird business, but I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.
Ups and downs, man. Ups and downs.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an absolute great story to get through, and like really good to see like the behind the scenes stuff and like that persistence pays off and that sort of stuff, and the sort of process of working on TV.
I know why Joe wouldn't meet me in Vegas. I just thought he was being a dick. It's like he thought he was a nice guy. Good on.
I'm sorry. I didn't want to. Like if I had chosen my flight, I would have shifted it around to see you. If I could stay to the hotel, hey, add one more night, I would have. But it was all on their dime.
It all makes sense. It all makes sense.
So
speaking of people hating you and trying to apologize, Steve's going to work through that and see if he can find it in his heart to forgive you now that he knows the real story.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'll work it.
There's no
guarantee. Thank you.
I just want to thank you for no reason. That's all.
Yeah.
Okay.
And a Starbucks gift card.
Thanks, man, for being on. Though. It's a great story.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It was great. And I can catch up for a few more minutes when we're done recording here in a second. And
and for people watching this will be the last one out before the big Blackpool Magic Convention. So me and Steve are both going to go there this year. I was there on my own last year because Steve abandoned me. But two of us will be there this year. So definitely you'll probably see us in the Ruskin. I said Ruskin and Drunken at the same time.
So this is going out before Blackpool?
Yeah. So
I'll say it on here as well. Last thing, find Freak, aka Daniel Dorian Johnson, and ask to see the world's smallest pocket writer. It's incredible. Saw it over Zoom, and you should see it. That's all I'll say.
Great. Thanks so much, Joe. And we've completed the trilogy, so now we got to do the prequels next. So we'll all shave our beards and de-age ourselves.
Let's the next one. Let's all have virtual backgrounds.
CGI everything.
Absolutely.
I'm on Coruscant.
Absolutely. You're pretty much a co-host at this stage. Thanks again for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you.
We really appreciate it. And thanks everyone for listening. And we'll catch you again at the next one. Thanks so much. See you.
See you then.